Hello, it's JP again from Misadventures channel. Today I'm going to tell you a little story about where I went to college. I went to the second oldest religious college in the United States by the name of Reinhardt Methodist College in a little town called Waleska, Georgia. It's about 50 miles northwest of Atlanta, Georgia. And when I attended in 1990, they were 108 years old. The only religious college that was older was William and Mary. Now, of course, I get to this little religious college, and its entire student population was only about a quarter of my graduating class from high school. A little over 300 students. Beautiful place, right up in the foothills there, the Blue Ridge Mountains, kind of on the southwestern tail of the Appalachians, Beautiful, beautiful place. Anyway, I had gone there on a music scholarship for choral music, singing, and got to do some really neat, interesting things. Of course, I was just a little 2-year junior college back then. And again, I was made a music major. And when I arrived, I had to learn Lord Nelson's Mass by John Haydn in Latin in about 2 weeks' time before performing it with the rest of my choir at the wonderful Carnegie Hall in New York City under the direction of Dr. Will Kesslin, who at the time was the director of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Now, that would have been, of course, the winter of 1990-91, Christmas season. The following year, in 1992, he asked our choir to participate in a celebration of the sesquicentennial of the discovery of the United States. Now, sesquicentennial means a 500-year anniversary, and it was the 500-year anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America, 1492-1992. Well, we flew to Washington, D.C., where we were going to perform with 3 other choirs in the Kennedy Center there. This would have been at the end of George Bush Sr.'s term as president. When we got there, they put us on these, Gray Line tour buses. Now, I don't know if any of y'all have ever gone to, a major city, but Gray Line runs tour buses in all the big major cities. And of course, D.C. is one of those. And they put us on this, basically a tour bus. And I think, okay, well, we're going to go to the hotel. Well, they didn't take us to the hotel. They took us to Georgetown University, which again, beautiful campus, of course, beautiful historic city. I had never been there before. And like any tourist, I was walking around, eyes big as tennis balls, my mouth hanging open, completely impressed with everything. And of course, feeling the nostalgia and the patriotism and everything. It's very moving. And we get to Georgetown University, and they walk us across the campus and everything. We walk across this quad and into this building. And it turns out it's one of their older auditoriums, not the current one they use for performances. And they seat us, basically in the audience there, facing the stage, and there's nothing on it, it's just a bare stage. And out walks Dr. Kesslin. And he welcomes us all there. And of course, it's our college concert choir, approximately, I think we had 27 people. Then there is a small high school choir from New York City. Then there is an adult gospel choir from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And last, there was another small adult jazz choir from Reno, Nevada. And we're all sitting there and everything. And he gives us a little surprise. And the little surprise they hand out to us is these little, packets. And of course, we pull it out, and it's legal length paper, and it's the national anthem. But this is not just any copy of the national anthem. This is an actual photocopy of Francis Scott Key's original handwritten composition of the national anthem with all the verses. Let me tell you, our national anthem is pretty long. It has a whole lot of verses that we do not sing. However, we weren't actually doing that particular arrangement. That was just a gift for us to take. It was beautifully done. It was actually done on really nice archival paper and everything. And it makes me wish I still had it. You know, when you're young, you misplace things or things get taken from you or destroyed. Unfortunately, in my life, that has happened. Pretty much everything I've ever owned has either been lost, destroyed, or outright stolen. Uh, it's just material things, though. I mean, yeah, it's upsetting at the time, but you realize that it's just material things. It doesn't really, it's nothing to get upset about, you know, because it will be replaced with something else. Something else will, become your love and attention and everything else. That's just how you have to look at it. I've actually had some things that were very sentimental to me that I've had destroyed right in front of me by somebody else, and was not done intentionally, much. And all you can do is laugh, and they're sorry for it and everything. And they really expect you to be angry and upset, and I've never been that way with people because I accidents happen, folks. There's, yeah, you can be upset, but don't take it out on the person who did it by accident. You know, they didn't mean to. Trust me, they're really sorry. If they could take it back, they would. So again, you just kind of have to laugh it off. Anyway, he warmed us up and everything, and we were doing a lot of traditional music, like Camptown races. Everybody knows that Camptown races. Ladies sing this song, do da do da, that kind of stuff. And we, we're doing, when Johnny comes marching home, and again, a lot of traditional folk music and everything from America. And one of the ones we were doing towards the end there, forgive me, I always forget the name of it. I have to sing a little bit. Thine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the... Oh, yeah. Battle Hymn of the Republic. That's the one. Anyway, the kids from Reinhardt, having been used to singing under Dr. Kessling before, we understood, what he expected of us. And, of course, towards the end of that song, there's a big crescendo. And, of course, being kind of students that we were, we knew we needed to breathe. And in order to breathe, you got to stand up so that you can access that diaphragm. So the kids from Reinhardt stood up and we belted it out for him. And he just grinned from ear to ear. And then he stopped everybody, And he says, everybody hear that? He says, apparently y'all can't breathe sitting in those cramped up seats. Why don't the rest of y'all stand up? So the rest of the people stood up. And this one little girl, I'd say she's probably 16 or 17, little blonde-headed girl, hair down to her butt, was right in front of the kids from Reinhardt. And as she was standing up, she kind of looked over her shoulder and she says, do all you cotton pickers like to stand? Now, of course, I went to school with a bunch of little Georgia redneck kids. Now, granted, I was an adult at the time. I was 21 years old, fixed to be 22. But all the kids I went to school with, they were like 16, 17, 18 years old. Georgia redneck kids. And they didn't take to that very, very kindly. Now, granted, they were their Southern gentlemen and Southern belles. They did not make any snide comments back. They just smiled and bit their tongues. But by the end of the rehearsal, them children were ready to string that child up by her big old long ponytail and lynch her from the nearest tree. They were upset. They were not used to being called cotton pickers by some damn Yankee. But we get on the bus and they are just, hemming and hawing back and forth and going on and on what they going to do to this little old gal and everything. Teach her a lesson, manners and stuff. And my director, Miss Judy Macmillan, Judy Mac we like to call her, Judy's trying to calm them down and everything, and she's just getting nowhere. And I'm sitting up front and I said, Judy, let me try. So I reach up and, every one of these tour buses has got one of these like CB microphones. And so I grab it, I click it on, and say, hey, hang on, guys. I need to tell y'all a little story about a couple old music major Southern belle friends of mine. Now, they're from Savannah. They were sorority sisters together and sang in the college choir and everything. And I was over at their place visiting one afternoon. We're sitting there on the veranda, and we decided to take a little stroll into town. There's a band playing at the Belvedere. They're there in the park right there. It's just on the city square downtown, which is, not but a few blocks away, really. So the girls go upstairs and, they get changed because no Southern Belles, they got to have at least 5 costume changes a day. So I'm waiting for them out there in the god-awful summer heat. And they come down, and of course, they've got their fans and their parasols and their hoop skirts like they had just stepped out of the 1880s, even though it was the 1980s. And here we go, down the sidewalk. And we get, I guess about a half block away. And their names were Henrietta and Clara. And forgive me, I'm going to try and do their Southern Belle Savannah accent as best I can. But Henrietta stops us and she says, Clara, do you see that big car over there? And Clara looked at her and says, well, yes, Henrietta, I see that big car over there. Henrietta looked at her and she says, well, my daddy bought that for me. And Clara looked at her and says, well, that's nice. And we strolled a little further down the street. And of course, they're twirling their parasols and fanning themselves and everything. And Henrietta stops Clara again. She says, Clara, do you see that big house over there? And Clara says, well, yes, Henrietta, I see that big house over there. Well, my daddy bought that for me. That's what Henrietta said. And Clara looked at her and says, well, that's nice, Henrietta. And then we turned the corner there, and there's a big plot of land over there. And Henrietta stops Clara again. She says, Clara, do you see that big plot of land over there? And Clara says, why, yes, Henrietta, I see that big plot of land over there. And Henrietta says, well, my daddy bought that for me. And Clara says, that's nice, Henrietta. And of course, we stroll on down to the town square. We sit down on the bench and listen to the band in the Belvedere there. Of course, they're playing all the old favorites, Dixie and everything else. And anyway, Clara's fanning herself, and she says, Clara, my daddy did so much for me. What did your poor daddy ever do for you? And Clara thought about it for a moment, and she says, why, Henrietta, my father sent me to finishing school. Well, we learned to say, that's nice, instead of fuck you. Of course, all the kids just love this. And they're laughing and everything. And I told them, now look, anytime this little young lady has some kind of rude, snide comment or observation, you just put on your best Southern gentleman or your best Southern belle. And you look her right in the face and you think in your head, bless her little heart. But you look at it and you say, that's nice. And just go on about your business, just grinning as big as you can. So that's what they did for the next 2 days. We sang at the National Cathedral, and we also, now these were just impromptu little singings. It wasn't that planned. We sang at the Vietnam Memorial there on the National Mall. And let me tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the freaking place. If they could hear us singing the national anthem there, they were bawling. Well, when we got done with that, she made some kind of little snide comment. And I don't know exactly what it was because I was a little too far away to actually hear it. But I do know a veteran who was in a wheelchair and doing a rubbing, and he was all bally and everything from us singing, and thanked us for it. He rolled right up to her and he says, young lady, he says, I suggest you go get back on your bus and don't you come back out because you about to get your butt beat for being so rude to these people. They have done something nice and patriotic and beautiful, and you just shit all over it. And I'm a Vietnam veteran myself, so I ain't got no damn filters. And I will whoop your butt like your mama or your daddy should have. You better get out of arm's reach for me because I'm fixing to slap you. And she turned all beat red and everything and stormed off. And I walked up to him. I said, I do apologize, sir. He said, she's not part of your group. I said, no, sir. That young lady is not one of us Southerners at all. She is a Yankee from New York City who does not know her place, does not know that young people should keep their mouths shut and listen to their elders and show good manners and respect. And it's that respect thing she really has a problem with. But that's okay. She's going to get a lesson. Trust me, she's getting her lesson coming real soon. But anyway, we get over the next days, we, like I said, we sang around. Then we get to our performance day. And we're there doing a dress rehearsal in the Kennedy Center. And of course, the president's going to be there. So there are Secret Service agents crawling all over this building. And there are other foreign dignitaries coming as well. And of course, their secret agents or police or security or whatever are also all over the place. And we run through our dress rehearsal, comes off out of hitch, sounds great. And one of the things that Dr. Kessling always does at the end of a dress rehearsal is he goes around and gives everybody like 5 minutes to say who they are, where they're from, and who they're with. And of course, he gets through, the two adult choirs and everything. He gets to my college concert choir, Reinhardt College Concert Choir. And of course, everybody gets their little piece, and I'm the last person to speak. Now, this is before the New York kids, mind you. And I'm like, hello, my name's JP. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm here with Reinhardt College Concert Choir from Valeska, Georgia. And I have a little anecdote I'd like to tell you about from a couple of old Southern Belle friends of mine, sorority sister music majors. They like to sing too. I was over at their place one afternoon, and of course, at this point, the Reinhardt kids were kind of snickering because they know what's coming. And I was telling them, y'all, here we all sitting out on the veranda drinking our mint juleps as we do in the South in the summer. And they were flipping through old sheet music they had for years and singing little tunes and humming to themselves and everything. And about an hour into it, Clara's, she's a little tipsy. Of course, so's Henrietta. Henrietta, well, she wasn't tipsy. Henrietta was drunk. Anyway, Clara looks at Henrietta and says, Henrietta, do you remember the minuet? And she's holding this sheet music and everything. And Henrietta thought about it for her. She's rocking and she's fanning herself with that sheet music. And finally, she looked at Clara and she says, Clara, how you expect me to remember the men I ate, much less the men I screwed? Brought the house down. For 30 minutes, I had Secret Service agents standing in the wings, crossing their legs, trying to keep from peeing on themselves. They laughing so hard. And of course, now the kids from New York didn't get to introduce themselves and say who they were, where they were from, because again, there are too many people laughing. So we get ready. We do our performance again, standing ovation, wonderful performance, and we're done. And we're walking backstage and going to our buses and everything. And that young lady makes it a point to make a beeline to me and come up and say something rude about how inappropriate my little joke was. And I looked at her and I said, young lady, and now some of y'all are old enough to remember, there used to be a commercial on TV for an investment firm out of New York called E.F. Hutton. And the way the commercial went is when E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. And you could have heard a pin drop in that place, because the second I wanted to tell her about Henrietta and Clara and how she should live her life a little better, you could have heard a pin drop. Everybody came to a dead stop, pivoted on their feet, and were looking dead at me. So I told her that's nice, Joe. And let me tell you, when she realized that she had been that's nice for the past 72 hours, pretty much, she realized that everybody she had talked to basically told her, fuck you. Well, she hung her little head and she walked away. And I'm standing there and I'm still laughing. Everybody else is laughing. And I turn around to walk away. And who did I run into? But my director, Dr. Judy McMillan, Dr. Will Kessling, this young lady's director from New York City, and the executive producer of the show. And I don't normally get embarrassed, folks, but at that point, I was a little embarrassed. I have to apologize for dropping the F-bomb in front of you. It was inappropriate. But this young lady and her director literally hugged me and shook my hand. She says, oh, no, you don't understand. She needed that. I've been wanting to put that little bitch in her place for 4 years. Thank God she's a senior and she's not coming back after this. I don't have to put up with her anymore. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed. But that was a little story I wanted to tell y'all. There's a little bit more of it that happened afterwards. I'll put that in another story because it doesn't really concern this one. Besides, I've made it to my destination. I'm at my mom's house now. I've got a few little things I need to do for her. She recently had her shoulder replaced, and so she's playing invalid. Well, I am too, because I've still got this tear in my calf. All right, y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to y'all later.